Devil's Reef is a unique biome and also the largest known reef in the world. Bordering the northern circle, the reef is nearly 50 kilometers across from north to south, and it circles most of the globe west to east. The reef is 300 meters below the surface and made from cold water coral rather than typical tropical coral. The Devil's Reef is so massive that on clear days the coral can be seen from the surface of the ocean. The reef acts as a buffer between the relatively safer waters south of the northern circle, and also as its own unique biome beneath the northern circle and the exoteric world. Coral beneath the water is able to sting human flesh and will sting most life that isn't native to the Devil's Reef biome. The combination of temperature extremes and the devil coral that makes up the Devil's Reef acts as an effective barrier between the northern circle and the southern waters of Oceanus. Very few things can survive traveling across 50 kilometers without touching any coral, without any food, and also survive the waters either getting warmer or colder than they are normally used to. Sadly, one of those very few things that can survive traveling over the Devil's Reef are humans. When human fishermen found a pristine biome with new fish and brand new creatures to consume, they did what humans always do. They explore, they exploit, and they explode. Beyond the northern circle, they found brand new fish, new squids, and even brand new gigafauna. Krakens, leviathans, kaiju, and eldritch monstrosities that would dwarf the beasts from primeval and would be strong enough to wipe out entire cities if they ever went beyond the Devil's Reef. The advantage the fishermen had was that they were too small for the eldritch monsters to worry about. Most of the time, at least. Even though fishermen knew that the waters beyond the Devil's Reef were dangerous, sometimes the potential reward was worth the risk to the right fishermen. While most of the time the fishermen could fish beyond the reef safely, there are, however, a few times where the fishermen bring something back from beyond the Devil's Reef. Something that they didn't intend to bring with them. January 1st, 2740. It has been a slim fishing season. I was barely breaking even, and if I don't bring back more fish this month, I am going to lose my home and my boat. Our normal spots aren't yielding much fish, so I am going to take the risk of going past the Devil's Reef. So I told my son, Jimmy, that I was going to be gone longer this trip, because I needed to head past the Devil's Reef. He knew that it was dangerous, but he also knew how much we needed the money. By this point, he was tired of only eating the fish I was catching, especially since the price of cornmeal went up yet again, so even cornbread is a luxury for us right now. I let my crew know about my plans, and 3 of the older fishermen quit over that news. It pains me to see them go, but I am able to replace them with some newbies who are looking for work. There's always another down on his luck drunk that needs to get paid. As long as they don't drink while we are at sea, I don't care what they spend their check on. With my crew ready, and my boat, the Alert, ready, we made our way out of New Fisher. A few old men tried warning us away from heading to Devil's Reef, but I had to ignore them. Old men always warn against going to Devil's Reef, and most of the time the ships that go beyond the reef are completely fine. Last I checked, we only lost 3 fishing boats in the last 20 years, so I was certain I was going to be alright. January 18th, 2740. We've made it to the Devil's Reef. Coral beneath the water is supposed to be 300 meters below the surface, but the cold white coral could be seen gently dancing to the deep sea currents as we made our way further north, and I warned the men not to look at the coral for too long. Staring at them for a long time tends to have an almost somnambulant effect on anyone staring at it too long. Sorta like snow in the ocean, and you always need to be alert when out on Oceanus. As we passed over the coral, I thought back to what Jimmy told me he learned from an old marine biology book about the Devil's Reef. He said that the coral, despite looking like coral, was actually more closely related to jellyfish than it was to tropical coral, and sometimes the microscopic coral would drift hundreds or even thousands of kilometers before finding the ideal environment to settle down. They were a lot like people in that way. He also said that most of the fish and other creatures that lived in the Devil's Reef couldn't live elsewhere. When scientists tried to take them out to examine, the fish would die in captivity within hours. Even coral samples would die within days, and even trying to move the fish to a different climate would kill the sea life. The sea life here was very durable because it lived in one of the harshest biomes on the planet. However, it was also very fragile because it would die anywhere else. Also, a lot like people. When we made it beyond the Devil's Reef, it felt like there was a change in the air. I could feel an internal pressure behind my ears, like I needed to pop, but I couldn't pop my ears. Even when I yawned or chewed gum, I could still hear, and so could the crew. So we continued even further north, watching carefully for anything that might be a risk to the boat. Tonight, I think we will find our fishing spot. January 18th, night 2740. The lights in the night sky were gorgeous. Gorgeous streaks of green, yellow, and blue danced across the night sky, an aurora unlike anything I saw back in New Fisher. This far north, the effect was more like watching dragons dance, fly, and fight across the sky. It was truly beautiful, and my men and I watched it for over an hour until the cloud cover was thick enough to keep us from seeing it. So now we head to bed, for real this time. I slept in, we all slept in, we slept past our alarms, and the dreams I had were strange. I dreamt that I was standing on the bow of the ship looking out over the seas. From the ocean, I could see a great ziggurat rise from the bottom of the sea, constructed from a strange stone that was white as bone and smooth as glass. On top of the ziggurat was an empty throne, a throne that was, logically, smaller than the ziggurat, but looking at the empty throne, it felt that throne held the weight of the world. And in the dream, I watched as all of the creatures of the ocean swam towards the ziggurat. Each creature threw itself onto the steps of the great temple, all committing suicide for the empty temple, with the empty throne atop it. I saw the fish, the turtles, the sharks, the squids, and even the whales all threw themselves at the steps. And still, there were more steps to cover in death and gore, and the highest levels of the ziggurat were untouched by the chaos and carnage below. Behind the sea creatures, I saw people swimming up to the steps. I screamed at them to stop, for them to leave this unholy place. But that did nothing. More and more people swam up to the temple to sacrifice themselves, and with every death, there was another behind them, willing to climb past their compatriots' blood and body, just for another chance to get a little closer to the empty throne. But no matter how many sacrificed themselves, no matter how many dead there were, the throne was always higher than anyone could reach. Even when the sea was red with blood and so full of bodies that the water could not be seen, the empty throne sat out of reach of everyone's desperate grasp. But no matter what I yelled at the people killing themselves to reach the throne, they didn't care. In their minds, the empty throne was worth dying, killing, and fighting for. Didn't matter if no one saw the throne. Just the fact that they could see the throne was enough to drive every living thing to self-destruction. I wondered why I was immune to this greed when I realized that I wasn't actually standing on the bow of my ship. Instead, I was sitting on the throne. I was dressed in robes of the most vibrant violet that I have ever seen or imagined. The throne I sat on was made of gold with encrusted jewels. As I looked down on all of the little pathetic worms trying to claw their way closer to me, it didn't matter what they were. They could have been a titanic sea serpent or a lowly fish, a prince of men or a king of beasts. Up on my throne of gold, jewel, and violets, they were all equally as pathetic as the maggots and parasites that ate the flesh of the dead. I was the king of all I saw. No, not a king. Something grander than a king. Someone who spoke for the gods. Someone who is a god in living flesh. Someone who was so regal that I could demand blood from others to make my robes violet. I saw all who struggled to reach me, and I had an idle thought to give up some of myself down to the maggots below. I thought of giving up my blood, or my jewels, or even a strip of my own purple robes down below. Instead, though, I decided to not give any of the masses below any part of myself. After all, they were killing each other just to get closer to me. Giving them a piece of myself would end the rabble, and it would end my entertainment. So I reclined in my throne, content to watch the maggots below feed on each other, never getting closer to me. As odd as the dream was, my day started normal, until we saw our first dead whale. Sometimes you will see dead whales. However, something was odd about the dead humpback whale. Across the whale's gray flesh were thousands of barnacles that licked the air and the water. As the boat passed by the whale, there was no blood nor chum in the water. Normally, thousands of scavengers would have started breaking down the whale by now. Instead, the only thing that ate the dead flesh of the whale was the barnacles that covered every square centimeter of the whale. We were careful not to get too close, but even from half a kilometer away, we could smell the rotting guts of the sea mammal. However, once we passed by the first whale, we saw the others. Dozens of humpback whales, all dead together. At least 3 dozen whales were just floating dead in the water, all covered in the same bone-white barnacles, all with no chum, no blood, and no scavengers. We couldn't see any cows in the water, so there were at least 9 different pods of whales who all just decided to die in the same place. Or something killed them. We all agreed to be far from the whales. Leviathans and kaiju both ate whales, and some of them were also scavengers. And the last thing we wanted to deal with was a child of Caribidus, a devil whale, or something worse. That might consider the alert a delicious meal. So we continue even further north for our fishing grounds. An old legend tells that if you suspect a devil whale is in the area, that it isn't safe to fish in. And even if I am agnostic towards most legends and myths. I have been a fisherman long enough to know that when something warns of danger, there is danger, even if you don't know why. I knew that creatures like leviathans, deep ones, and devil whales were just creatures. They had to be. Scary, terrifying, and dangerous, but so are sharks and octopi, and sailors made legends about them too. We found the fishing ground, January 20th, 2740. The fish here are strange. The fish we pull up have no eyes, not because they're blind fish. Their eyes are just gone, completely wiped out of their skulls. Not like something ate their eyes either, they just aren't there. Empty sockets that have only darkness inside of them, but they are easy to catch, and we are filling the freezers down below very quickly. We should be able to finish by tomorrow. I don't like the way the fish look at me. They watch me. Even through the freezer walls, they watch me. Every move I take, every breath I take, every mistake I make, they're watching me. I don't like how they keep moving, even when they're frozen, but they only move when they're not watched. I have to hide from them, but there is nowhere that I can hide from them. They're maggots trying to climb up the ziggurat. They cannot hurt me. They throw themselves into our nets because they prefer death over what is chasing them. January 21st, 2740. Had a hard time sleeping. I kept having nightmares, and at one point I tried writing it down in my logbook. Whatever I wrote last night, I cannot read it. I dreamt again of the throne that towered over the ocean. I dreamt that I sat on the throne, and instead of creatures killing themselves on the steps of the temple to try and reach me, I was surrounded by a quiet earth. I could see to the very ends of the earth, from the highest reaches of the sky to the darkest depths of the ocean. Nothing lived on the entire planet. Nothing except myself. From the mightiest kaiju to the smallest microbe, I was alone in the world, so I stared up to the night sky above. The sun was a red disk in the sky with an empty heart that slowly expanded to consume the disk in its entirety. Like an eclipse, but there was no moon in front of the sun. The stars above were so plentiful that even with the sun consumed by Mammon, leaving emptiness where the sun once was, the sky was full of light that was brighter than even the sunniest summer day. Even as the sun was consumed, there was only one spot of darkness above. A black moon that howled from never-ending grief as I watched the cosmic dance above me. A black moon surrounded by a ring of stellar silver. The sun grew smaller, and the moon grew larger, as the waters surrounded my temple and drowned me. But even as I could no longer breathe, I could not tear my eyes away from the black moon above, whose howls echoed through the water around me as I stared up at the black moon, endlessly fascinated. And then something impossibly large covered the black moon. It both ascended from the southern pole of Luna's obsidian surface, and it also descended from the moon's northern pole, a substance that was the color of a night sky at sunset, covered in countless sparkling, impossible diamonds and jewels that shone like stars, a color that filled me with longing and sadness. It reminded me of heartbreak, lost love, and longing. It was like what I felt at my wife's death, but so much worse. My wife was just dead. As much as I missed her, the very fact she was dead meant that I would see her again, because I too would die someday. Not a comforting thought most of the time, but the very nature of mortality meant we would be together someday. The impossible thing that covered the black moon was a reminder of a love that I would never know and that I would never see. Even death would be denied to me as the depths of the ocean pushed me even further away from what covered the black moon as the impossible covering of the moon parted. The covering rushed down south and north, revealing the impossibly dark moon as the substance revealed the moon and the silver surrounding it as it grew closer to me, covering the entirety of the sky as I was pushed further down. Black Moon blinked at me. That didn't scare me. That only filled me with more longing as I reached up to try and reach out to the eye of the one above me. In my dream, I knew that I loved her. In my dream, I knew that I hadn't seen her in so long that I only wanted another moment to see her. It wasn't the night sky above I was looking at earlier. It was her skin. The skin of someone or something impossibly large, impossibly powerful, impossibly lonely, impossibly ancient. My love who had been separated from me for so long that I had forgotten her name, and she had forgotten my name as well, as I reached up for her, and her howling tore through me as I finally woke up in bed and I wrote down what I dreamt. What is wrong with these waters? The sky above is gray, and that makes me full of longing. The pain of missing my wife feels fresh again, and the crew is quiet as they work. They quietly whisper among each other as they work. But I caught a few words. They are all missing someone on land as well, and the sky above, being as gray as the sea below, is making us feel worse. Something feels wrong about the ocean. Even though we are pulling up even more fish, the ocean doesn't feel alive. Normally, the ocean feels alive. Sometimes angry, sometimes happy, sometimes sad, and sometimes an emotion I don't have words to describe. But it felt dead on that day. We finally have reached our final load of fish, and we are running into an issue. Some of the fish have bone-white barnacles on them, barnacles that taste the air with their tongues, that kept licking our gloved hands even as we threw the fish back. But I cut myself on one of the barnacles, and I know a few other men have done so as well. But we aren't talking about it. I think maybe a few barnacles might have made their way into the hole with the fish. However, that's fine. We have more than enough to make it through. We have begun the trip back. January 24th, 2740. The sea is quiet. The sky is quiet. The sailor is quiet. The ship is quiet. The waves crash silently on the decks. I can feel the wind in my hair, but it does not whistle past my ears. I can feel the chill on my skin, but my teeth do not chatter. I can feel the emptiness of my stomach, but it does not growl. I can see the words of my logbook, but the pages do not rustle. I have not dreamed in 3 days. A great relief. Last night I decided to stop sleeping. Even when I sleep, it is restless. My body aches, my eyes are bloodshot, and I feel like I have to keep moving. We passed the Devil's Reef yesterday, and when we did, some of the sailors were thrown over. Only the ones who were dead weight. The men who still slept did not wake up. They were holding us back. Their eye sockets were as empty as the fish. They stared at us, and from toothless gums they whispered to us. When you are in complete silence, you are thankful for the whispers at first. But they whispered the same words over and over. Adam's wrath has escaped none's grasp. Adam's wrath has escaped none's grasp. Adam's wrath has escaped none's grasp. It was not right, and the dead men still moved. They only moved when we did not look at them. They followed me. They were always behind me. They were always whispering. The only sound in the world, and no matter what I did, I could not trap the dead men. They followed, they whispered, they tormented. I threw them all overboard. Some of them still grasped at my hands and arms as I threw them overboard, even though the only words I could hear was, Adam's wrath has escaped none's grasp. I could still read their lips as the dead men begged for their lives. There is only one sailor left other than myself. The sky and the sea are still gray. I have not seen the sun, moon, nor stars in days. I don't remember what they look like anymore. Did the sun ever exist? Or was that just an illusion? A lie we tell ourselves so we don't feel alone in the darkness. Did the stars ever exist, or are they simply Sisyphus's distant stone? Something we can never approach nor push up, always pushed down by them. Did the moon ever exist? Or was the moon always an eye watching me that has decided that I am now too hideous to look at? I am hideous. I hate mirrors. They remind me that I am hideous. My true beauty is inside of me, and it's just covered by this disgusting, rotting, cloying meat that we are born surrounded by. No one brave enough to just remove the dead weight, keeping us from being beautiful. But I am growing more beautiful each day. I saw some of my true beauty shine through a few days ago. The first night I could not sleep. I got up and went to the sink to see if the water could help me calm down. What I saw in the mirror scared me. My skin was sallow, my hair was greasy, my eyes were bloodshot, and my stubble was coming in. So figuring I wasn't getting enough sleep, I grabbed my razor and I shaved away my stubble. Each time I slid the razor across my face, I left more and more of my stubble and my ugliness in my sink. Scrape after scrape, I left dark hair, red flesh, yellow blood, and pink tissue in the sink until it clogged my sink and I decided to dump my stubble into the trash. After I shaved, I was with a permanent smile, my mandible bone shining through, a few fibrous tentacles connecting the mandible to the skull, a few of the barnacle shells clear, but I was just happy to remove some of the stubble. But still, I was hideous. True beauty came from within, but I couldn't let it out yet. I had to let the beauty grow. Each night since then, I have shaved more and more of my body. For the first time in my life, I shaved my legs, my genitals, and my chest, as I finally revealed more and more of my beauty, leaving more and more of my hideousness away, as I exposed more and more fibers and more barnacles. I was careful to leave the flesh beneath the skin as untouched as I could. My beauty needed to feed. We will be home in a few days. I wonder why the other sailor lives in the mirror. January 27th, 2740. I am finally beautiful. January 28th, 2740. I feel incomplete. My beauty wants to grow more, but there is nothing left to feed it. I soak in the freezer with the fish, but it isn't enough. The beauty lives, but it needs more to grow. I feel it inside of me, like the heart of a beating temple. It needs to spread among the others of home. Home. Hum. Hmm. What is my home called? Why can't I remember? Why can't I remember my child's name? Wait, I didn't forget. I knew I didn't forget. My child's name is Beauty. My child's name is Life. My child's name is Death. Adam's Wrath. Adam's Wrath. Adam's Wrath. Adam's Wrath is my true children, and they shall be shared with everyone. I wonder if the sky will ever stop being gray. I wonder if I will ever see night or day again. I wonder if I will ever hear anything other than the whispers of the sailor watches me from above. He is hideous. He is nobody special. Nobody was always on the ship. I just can't see him now. I wonder if he took my dreams, or if I gave them to him. My men returned from the mare. They climbed up the boat, all beautiful, bare bone and barnacle. They carry children of their own, and they hoped to help their children grow. But there isn't enough food in these waters, so they are hoping to help their children home. Nobody is piloting the ship. We work under nobody's watch. Nobody eats, nobody sleeps, everybody works. Nobody rests. Nobody writes for me while I work alongside the men. I wonder if their minds are like mine, or if they are truly beautiful and empty. When we arrive home, nobody disembarks. The men and I unload the fish onto the dock. It must be night for everyone else. There is no darkness for us. There is no light. There is only the whispering shh, the gray, and the mare. The boat tied into place. We wait beneath the dock. We hide in none's bosom. We no longer need shoes kiss to live. In time, they will eat the flesh, and they will carry Adam's wrath, and I will get to join them, and we will find enough food for our children to live. Adam's wrath has escaped Noon's grasp, and like all good children, Adam's wrath is ready to make his own home. January 30th, 2740. I remember her name. She knows my name. I am not the one she's looking for. Mary E. Tu Nut. The Alert pulled into New Fisher with no apparent crew. The logbook was found, but the writing was impossible for anyone to read. Anyone who tried reading the words would forget them soon afterwards. Only if they dictated what it said while it was read, and someone was listening, could it be understood. It could be summarized or copied over. However, the original logbook was impossible to read and recall at the same time. By the time the people of New Fisher knew what was happening, the infection of Adam's wrath had spread across the town, not just from the infected fish, but also from the silent screamers from the Alert, leaving behind both strange infection and stranger writing. Nobody survived, nobody escaped, nobody won.